expect them to change their mind so that you don't get incredulous whenever she does, because I know she's only going to listen to 1 or 2 songs, but that's okay.
Just roll with the punches, right?
Hi, I'm Rachel, owner of the NaturalBirth site, certified birth doula, childbirth educator, and midwife's assistant.
And I'm Tiffany Munez, certified birth doula, lactation counselor, and midwife assistant.
Here, you'll learn all about different aspects of pregnancy, birth, and postpartum.
Remember, none of this information should take the place of your care provider and is not medical advice.
Birth is not a medical emergency.
Thanks for listening.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Natural Birth Talk. I'm your host, Rachel. Tiffany is not able to make it today. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie, guys, we just kind of put off our recording until the last minute, and then her son was sick, and then we decided to not record an episode this week, but then I decided that I couldn't just not record an episode this week because you guys would want an episode. And so last minute, I decided that I was gonna interview my husband, Scott. Say hi.
Hello.
And ask him some of his pro tips for dads during birth and pregnancy and postpartum, just the whole perinatal period. So it's not going to be a super long episode. It'll be pretty quick, but it should be pretty fun. And we don't do a whole lot of episodes based around dads. And that's been one of our goals this year, is that we want to do a little bit more for dads, because honestly, you guys kind of get forgotten about sometimes, don't you, Scott?
Yeah, I guess so.
Especially in like pregnancy.
Yeah, because it's all about mom.
Yeah. And then birth. You're just there to like help and try not to lose your mind during the process, right?
Right.
And then postpartum, it's about baby and mom still a little bit.
Taking care of mom while keeping the baby alive.
Yeah. So, but dads really do need more attention. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So just start with like your number one tip, that if anybody would come to you and be like, hey, I'm pregnant, what are your tips? I know your wife's a doula, or maybe they don't know I'm a doula, but what would be your number one tip for a dad?
To get a doula.
To get a doula.
Yes.
Why is that?
Because the doula is going to support both mom and dad throughout the process. Everybody always thinks that the doula is just there for mom, and some people don't really understand what a doula is and think that she's there for the baby. But the doula is an integral part of the support team to take care of both mom and dad, and that's super important.
Yeah, I agree, and that fits our episode perfectly since we're talking about dads.
Yeah.
Doulas help dads too, so that's great. And let's backpedal for a second. A lot of the listeners know our background and know a lot about us, but if they're new to the episode, to the podcast, or if they've only listened to a few episodes, they may not know a ton about us. So, how many kids do we have?
Well, we have 5, but you've birthed 3.
I've birthed 3, correct, and our other 2 are adopted. So our first birth was at the time of this recording about 13 years ago, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. And I think we both thought we were really knowledgeable, or at least I did.
Yeah, you did.
And then we got into the birth and I was like, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
And you were just there trying not to annoy me.
Just did what I was told. Which is my next tip. Do what you're told and listen to mom and listen to the midwife. It's very important.
Yeah. So hopefully you have a really wonderful midwife, or if you have to have an OB, a really wonderful OB that you can listen to. But definitely listen to mom, listen to the doula, and then hopefully your care team is on board with your plans and such, so you can listen to them as well, right?
Yeah. Well, and with listening to mom, that also means that if she tells you to do one thing and then 5 minutes later tells you to do the complete opposite, just do it.
That's a really good tip. Because, and really, guys, we did not really go over these tips ahead of time. This is a very impromptu recording. I prepped him with, you're going to tell them your pro tips. That's it. That's kind of all I told him.
And I'm not a pro, so pro tips is,
is in quotes.
We're putting air quotes around pro. You just can't see it.
So these are really all his real tips. They're not tips that I told him to give you guys. So his last tip, if mom tells you to do something and then 5 minutes later tells you to do something else, just listen. It's like a really fantastic tip, because in
It
birth,
happens.
it does. It happens, and it happens every single time. And in birth, like 1 second mom really likes something, and then maybe something in her body shifted, or maybe you know, she moved between, early labor and active labor, or all of a sudden like really intense waves kicked in or something. She may want something completely different. Her hormones may have changed a little bit because your hormones change throughout birth.
Stimulation is a big, like, she can get overstimulated and then understimulated, like, turn on the music so that I can calm down, like, turn that noise off.
Yes.
Like right after you hit play.
Yeah. Which it's funny that you bring up music, because in our first birth, I don't know if I had a playlist necessarily, but at one point someone asked me if I wanted music. And the only thing I could think of that maybe I might want to listen to was the band Train, which I love because I think their music's hilarious and it's really catchy. And he turned it on. So I had like Train playing for one song during my labor. And within 1 or 2 songs, I was like, turn it off. I like could not handle it. So it was like a perfect example of what you just said.
Yeah. That's why it's important to just expect them to change their mind so that you don't get incredulous whenever she does, because I know she's only going to listen to 1 or 2 songs, but that's okay.
Just roll with the punches, right? What was something that I had to tell you maybe a couple times during our labor, and I often have to tell people in the room, since considering that I like it quiet.
Shut up. Because the instinct, as the dad, you feel a little bit helpless because you can't really do much to like make the baby come out or make her feel better, and you want to. So your instinct is, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? And to ask all these questions, and you keep wanting to ask questions out of a heart of wanting to help, but all you do is just annoy them and overstimulate them and make them think about things they don't need to think about. My recommendation for that is, if you feel the need to ask to help with something, maybe ask the midwife, or even better, the midwife birth assistant if they have one.
Or nurse if you're in the hospital.
Yeah, or nurse if you're in the hospital. And then you're able to try to contribute, but you're not annoying the heck out of your wife while she's trying to push a human out of her.
It's so true. So a little more background with us. Our last birth was a home birth. So he's definitely, and that was 4 years ago. Oh my, which is just almost hurtful to say out loud.
Yeah.
But he's definitely still in that mindset of home births, and I attend a lot more home births than I used to. But we did have 2 hospital births. First one was hospital. The second one was technically a hospital, but it was set up more like a birthing center. With the midwife I had, I birthed in a tub. So each one has gotten progressively more like natural. A home birth, more and more calm and natural, and the last one being a home birth. So that's where his mind really is. So which is why he said birth assistant instead of nurse. But your nurse is in the hospital is basically a birth assistant. So, sometimes the nurses in certain hospitals, like we have one hospital around here, which Scott doesn't know, but their nurses are really, really great, and they are very hands-on if you want them to be. They're very knowledgeable. They know a lot of ways to help with natural birth. They see more natural births in this particular hospital. But in some hospitals, the nurses are not used to that. They may not know how to help. They may not know how to give good suggestions. Even an OB or an OB may not be able to give good suggestions. Usually a midwife can, unless they're what we refer to as a medwife. Do you know what that means, Scott? A medwife?
A medwife is a midwife that's very medically minded.
Yeah, she's
more like an OB without the doctorate.
Yeah, without the surgery training, right? So anyway, you can ask your team, but if you have a doula is going to be great for that. And doula is going to help guide dad to where he doesn't even have to ask in the first place. But, dads, don't be afraid to try to fill in the shoes. If you, like he said, if you need to ask, maybe you could ask the birth team instead of mom. But also some things that you can do, something as simple as just holding mom's hand and not moving. Because I think in 2 out of 3 of our births, you got stuck in a position.
Oh, yeah. The first one, I was holding her leg up, but we won't talk too much about that because she was laboring in a position that is not ideal. But they had me holding up her leg, and that was interesting because I was stuck there basically the whole time she was pushing on that one. So.
And I remember you tried to like scratch your nose or just move. You moved your hand at one point, and I yelled at you.
Yeah,
I was like, put it back. But even, just helping mom helps a lot. And then with the second one, I was in the tub and you were holding my hand at one point during pushing again. And you like tried to move it. And again, I yelled at him.
Yeah. Because I think I was trying to see what was going on, which I don't always recommend, dads. If you didn't watch birth videos before the birth, maybe don't try to look at things if you're not prepared for it. But yeah, I was just trying to move to look. And it was not a good idea.
It was not allowed, according to me. So, but sometimes just holding a leg, holding a hand, just a constant pressure or a constant presence is really, really helpful. And then something else, and you didn't have to do this so much because I had fast labors.
Correct.
But another thing dads can do that is incredibly helpful, and it might seem kind of menial, but it's really not. It's actually really important, is making sure mom's drinking fluids.
Yeah.
So, and this was something you were really good about postpartum. I feel like you were really good about making sure I had, especially with this last one, making sure I had fluids and food postpartum. And so that's another big tip. And actually, I want to come back to that postpartum thing here in a second.
Take care of her because her mind is set on taking care of baby. She's in those mama instincts are kicking in, and she's very focused on the baby.
Yeah.
And as the husband and the dad, you need to make sure that you're focusing on taking care of mom because that's her second priority right now. So as crazy as it sounds, you should make taking care of mom the first priority over taking care of the baby because all she cares about is that baby right then and there. So you got to keep her hydrated, keep her fed, keep her rested. So there's your part of taking care of the baby. Because she can't take care of the baby properly if she doesn't have those things.
Well, and honestly, that applies to the entire perinatal period because in pregnancy too, sometimes mom's so tired because I'm, not consciously taking care of the baby, but my body is taking care of the baby. And so sometimes I'm so, mom's so tired or nauseous or stressed or whatever. And that's where dad's, just taking care of mom, something as simple as making sure she has food and water or electrolytes, because sometimes it's not just water, guys. We always hear food and water is obviously important, but we want some sort of electrolytes as well, whether that's high quality salt on our food that we're not shying away from, we're salting it to taste, or we're having some sort of electrolyte drink. It's really important. But, and then that follows through to the birth and through to the postpartum.
Well, I mean, and that reminds me, all of this stuff leads to you should really do a childbirth education beforehand if you've never done one before. Even if this is your third baby and you think you know everything, if you've never done a childbirth education course, do it. I mean, whether it's an online one or an in-person one, whatever, that's really helpful so that you know what to expect during the birth and some suggestions and tips that you may not have ever thought of. And I think you cover a little bit of postpartum in yours too.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So, I mean, it helps you with all the steps of it. So something like keep her hydrated, I feel like is something you would learn there, even outside of this, 20-minute episode.
Especially if it's a good childbirth ed class. And that's the key. Like the childbirth ed classes in the hospital are not usually up to snuff, guys. Like they are more about training you to follow hospital policy and teaching you about hospital policy. And they do teach you some helpful things. But getting a childbirth ed class outside of a hospital, so my online childbirth education class, or if you can find an in-person class, there's all different kinds of methods, and you can find one outside of the hospital, it's going to be a really awesome option. It's an awesome tool, not just for mom, but dad too.
Yep.
And that's one of my things with my prenatal visits as a doula is I do like dads to be there and to be present so that they can gain that knowledge and that understanding as well. Because like the birth, mom is the one who's really going through the birth, the physical stretching, the opening, the hormone changes, the pressure and the, we try not to call it pain, but the sensations and all of that. But dad, like Scott already said, like dads feel it too, and they go through it in a different way. And
Well, and
so
dads are nervous going into it and scared or whatever, but the difference between the fear or the apprehension that the dad has compared to the mom is the dad feels nervous for the wife. The dad feels nervous for whether he wants to make sure he's doing the right thing during everything. He doesn't want to mess it up, or he doesn't want to mess up the birth experience. But at the same time, all those fears and apprehensions on a certain level, the dad feels like, I shouldn't talk about those fears and apprehensions because I don't want to stress out mom. But it's okay that you're nervous because this is a big deal for you too. This is a life-changing event. Whether it's your first kid or your sixth kid, it's changing your life again. And you want to make sure that your wife and your child or partner, whatever, have a good experience. But it's okay that you're nervous.
Yeah.
And educating yourself helps alleviate that nervousness, and just knowing that it's okay to be nervous and apprehensive is important. It's actually, I would argue that it's important that mom knows that you're nervous, because
to a point.
I'm talking prenatal, not during the birth, but because that will show that you care. It'll help her feel like she's not alone in this. It's important to share those feelings with each other so that you're united in all of it.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, it's okay to be nervous. It's normal.
Hey everyone, Rachel Manns here, and today I have something I'm thrilled to share with you guys. Imagine having a treasure trove of informative, entertaining, and empowering video content about the journey to parenthood right at your fingertips. That's exactly what you get with Informed Pregnancy Plus. For less than 25 cents a day, that's a quarter, guys, you'll gain access to a vast subscription library filled with documentary films, web series, mind and body fitness programs, workshops, and courses covering fertility to parenting and everything in between. Designed for new and expectant parents, as well as pregnancy and birth professionals, Informed Pregnancy Plus is like having a trusted BFF and doctor in one, guiding you through every step of the path to and through parenthood. A few of just my favorite titles are obviously The Business of Being Born, Empowered Mama, Belly Dance for Birth, how fun is that? Ease into Sleep, the Afterbirth Plan, and the Core Connection, an extremely well-presented and informative workshop teaching you about your core and pelvic floor and how to keep them healthy. And here's the best part. For a limited time, you can gain full access absolutely free. Just visit informedpregnancy.tv to sign up. Sign up for Informed Pregnancy Plus right now. I'm not kidding, guys. It's really going to help you out. It's my prescription for your informed and empowered parenting journey, all from the comfort of your home. Visit informedpregnancy.tv. That's informedpregnancy.tv, and the link will be in the description below. Now back to the show.
Well, and that's where, like you said, taking a childbirth ed class comes into play, but also having a doula comes into play again. And a lot of doulas provide a childbirth education class or childbirth education to some extent with their prenatals. Now, a lot of them don't. A lot of them just do the 2 prenatals, and you have to seek a full childbirth education class elsewhere, which again is where like my online childbirth education class comes in handy, or if you can find an in-person class, which is even better, honestly. But it's key to helping dads to feel less nervous and helping them to feel more prepared. And I totally had something else I was just going to say with that. Now I just totally can't remember it. So maybe I'll come back to that. I don't know. But one thing that we did with our third, which would have been helpful if I did not have a precipitous birth, which a precipitous birth is a birth that's 3 hours or less from start to finish. And mine was significantly less than 3 hours from once I realized I truly was in labor.
I almost missed it.
Scott made it by 5 minutes, guys, like literally 5 minutes. And what did he do? He came in talking.
Yep. Well, to be fair, I had already been through 2 other births with her. And so I'm thinking we're just run-of-the-mill I get out of my truck. My kids are running outside. She's like, she's having the baby. And I'm like, yeah. Let me take off my boots. And then I walk in the door and I hear her from the upstairs bathroom, which I thought was weird.
Because the whole plan was to be downstairs, and I had a whole setup plan. None of it happened.
She's like, get in here. And I go in there, and baby's crowning, and I'm like, whoa, that escalated quickly.
Well, and so one of the things we had prepared ahead of time was a phone tree of who we needed to call in what order to contact when I went into labor. And so he did great remembering about the phone tree. He walked in trying to delegate phone calls to the kids and who could make calls from my phone and his phone and what to do with all of that. And so he's trying to go with the plan and be helpful. And again, had I not had a precipitous birth, it would have been incredibly helpful. But because he walked in,
pivot.
Well, he didn't know to pivot yet. As soon as I told him the baby was crowding, he did pivot. Pivot. He did pivot, but that phone tree.
Yes, it's a useful tool. Like she said, in our case, it wasn't.
It helped postpartum. As soon as the baby was here, we knew to call. I
sent one of my kids with his mom's phone, and I just made him call everybody while I was in there doing whatever she told me to do to help her with herself and the baby.
Well,
luckily the midwife showed up.
20 minutes later?
20 minutes after the baby was there, so she was able to help guide all of that and then help. But the phone tree is great if you can implement it in time.
Yeah.
Which we didn't get to this time, but
it worked postpartum still.
It's a great plan.
Yeah. And the doula actually got there before the midwife. And so another reason why doula is great, because she was able to come in and help, because it was Tina.
Yeah.
So she got here before the midwife. So she came in and helped. She was here just maybe 10 minutes after the baby was born.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She got here before Allison.
I think Hannah got there first.
Well, yeah. Hannah walked in as she came out. And then Tina. And then the midwife.
It was boom, boom, boom. Everybody came quick.
Yeah, everybody came. Well, probably because I frantically called them when my water broke. And they're like, oh my gosh, we got to get there.
Yeah.
But anyway, the phone tree was really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And then the doula was super helpful and all that. Yeah. And another thing to come back and say, so my 9-year-old son and husband caught the baby in the bathtub because we have a really big bathtub at the time. Because the midwife and doula were not there. So no one else, and the neighbor was here, but I had just handed her my phone and said, take pictures because that was my priority. But dads, maybe you should know how to catch a baby.
Yeah, I mean,
to
be fair, we were lucky enough that we were already planning on our son and I catching the baby in this birth.
Mm-hmm.
So our son wasn't traumatized by seeing things that he would never normally want to see on his mother because he was already prepared for.
We had watched a lot of videos.
He watched a lot of birth videos.
It was his idea.
He wanted to help. He wanted to do it. Yeah. So we were lucky there, but even if you're not planning on that being the case, it is a good idea to, maybe be a little prepared for catching if you have to, if things escalate quicker than you think.
Yeah.
So.
And a quick sidebar on that, I'm just going to give you some tips on how to catch. Don't let the baby hit the floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's important.
It's really not hard, guys. Like, it's really not hard. I had one client whose husband is a police officer, and we're still friends with them to this day. And he had to take an emergency preparedness class for how to catch a baby. And so they went through basically like get the cleanest towel or shirt or whatever you can find so baby can stay warm. So you catch baby with that because babies are very slippery. So if you're not prepared, if you're not used to catching a baby with your bare hands, you really should do it with a towel or something because they're much more slippery than you would realize.
Which we should have done.
Well, maybe, but so have a towel, whatever you can get that's close to help catch the baby. And then once the baby's out, you need to check and see if you need to like unwrap a cord around the neck or the leg or the arm or something, which is very normal for about 40% of babies have some sort of nuchal wrap, a cord wrapped around their neck or their arm or their leg. It's very normal. So you unwrap it and then you need to see how long the cord is. Because if it's a short cord, you don't want to pull the baby up to mom's chest or pull the baby away from it. So just kind of be aware of how short or long that cord is. And then you put baby either right on mom's abdomen or her chest and let her hold them. That'll keep baby warm. You cover them up. Do not cut the cord. If you call 911, they're going to tell you to clamp off the cord with like a shoestring or something most of the time. You don't have to listen to that. You actually want to let that cord keep flowing.
Yes.
And if 911 is there and present, you want to tell them not to cut the cord. But literally that's it. Remember, all babies are born blue as well. So blue is not a scary color. It can take baby up to a minute or two to breathe. And as long as that cord is still attached, they're still getting oxygen. So you just want to stay calm and stimulate the baby and talk to the baby. And then at some point in time, do call 911, not because it's an emergency, because it's really not, but just in case mom or baby do need a little bit of extra help, which is pretty rare, and they can usually handle it just fine. But since you don't know what you're doing, call 911.
Yeah, I mean,
but just let them know, like,
if
it's
your
not an
midwife's
emergency.
available,
This
like,
is just what's going on.
If you were already planning some sort of home birth, or you have a midwife that will come to you,
or a birthing center too, you can call them.
Yeah, you could also call them and
good tip, babe.
Take care of it that way. You don't have to resort to the medical intervention type people.
Yeah, that's a really good tip. So a lot of people will just call like their midwife directly, or like we have a birthing center around here that has an on-call number, so we just call them, and they can help walk you through everything as well. So it's really not that hard, though. I know I probably just made it sound scarier than it is, but yeah, it's not hard. Don't let the baby hit the floor, and then don't pull on the umbilical cord. That's about it. So okay, so that's my little digression on how to catch a baby. Obviously you don't want to make that your plan, but as a doula, I have caught a couple babies. That is not my job. It is not in my job description. It's never my goal, but there have been 3 different times that mom's plan has digressed and she had accidental home births. And one of the times the paramedics got there in time. They had no idea what they were doing. They asked me 6 times what to do, and I had to walk them through it. And there were like 8 paramedics in this room also, and they kept asking me what to do. And that's not a cocky statement. That's just kind of a realistic statement of like, paramedics really are not
birth workers.
They're not birth workers. This is new for them. It's or not a common thing that they come across. And then the other 2, I had to catch baby because there was nobody else present to catch the baby. And you literally just catch the baby, like, again.
Yeah, it's not complicated.
And say a couple prayers, like. Okay. So the last tip that I really once got to talk about, and I am going to guide this tip because it was so important. I know it was really important for him once he realized how important it was. Like, I know that sounds weird, but it was really important for me too, is being prepared for postpartum. Right?
Okay.
So what book did you audiobooked? Do you remember the name of it? It's been 4 years.
No.
It's a Third Trimester by Kimberly Ann Johnson.
Yes.
I really love this book as a whole. If you're a Christian, there's 1 or 2 chapters that get a little maybe kind of questionable and weird, but you can skip those. The rest of the book is just incredibly helpful. Do you remember what you said to me after you read that book? Or at some point, it was some point throughout the pregnancy and postpartum. Do you remember? It stuck with me. He said he apologized for not knowing all of these things in our other pregnancies. Oh. And so it was something along the lines of just like, wow, I really like this book. This is great. I'm really sorry I didn't know this stuff sooner. And I just kind of giggled a little and said, babe, I didn't know it either. So I don't know, tell a little bit about like kind of what you learned from that book, or something that you made things that you made a priority postpartum because of the book. I mean,
really,
you kind of already said some of it, honestly.
Yeah, it's some of the stuff I talked about before, where you are very focused on taking care of mom when she's pregnant because you can see that she's pregnant, right? So it's there on the forefront. There's no baby yet, so it's very easy to remember, hey, I need to take care of mom because she's pregnant. And then the baby comes. And so often, everybody's like, baby, 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 baby. And everyone wants to come over to take care of the baby. Everybody wants to come over to see the baby, get their pictures, get their cuddles, all of the cute baby stuff. which is great. But everybody tends to forget about the fact that mom's body just went through a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a recovery process.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes you'll hear about people that have a really speedy recovery and they bounce right back and I'm not recommending this necessarily, but they're working out like within like probably too soon, all those kinds of things. But for the most part, most moms, they need that rest. Rest is like the most important thing for them, which seems counterintuitive because their instinct is to take care of that baby, and babies do nothing but take away your rest sometimes. But
well, that's a little plug for co-sleeping, but you have to know how to do it safely, and that'll be a topic for a different episode.
There you go. But yeah, rest is the most important thing. Her body needs to recover. And with recovery, of course, rest is important, but you also have to help keep her nourished. You have to help reduce her stress. You have to, all the things that she usually takes care of for the home, they still have to get taken care of, whether she's resting and recovering and taking care of a new baby or not.
Mm-hmm.
So all these people that are coming to see the baby, make them do something.
Yes.
It's like a cost of admission is the best way to think of it. Like if somebody wants to come over, they got to bring a meal, or if they don't bring a healthy meal that mom wants that isn't going to make her gag because she's still got some of those pregnancy reflexes, but they can bring food. They can take the other kids away if you have kids to just give you a break from that. They can do a chore.
Yeah.
Like that's huge.
Yep.
Like the house is falling apart around you for a little while because you can't keep up with the laundry and the cleaning and all of that. And really, if you want to come see the baby, you got to help out. And if people aren't cool with that, they can wait until mom's recovered to be able to see the baby. And that may sound heartless and mean, but mom needs to recover. And if you're just coming over for your own selfish reasons, you're not coming over to help.
Yeah.
So you don't need to come over stealing her mental energy.
Yeah.
When she needs to recover.
And you were really good about that. So it actually became almost annoying, but it really wasn't because it was so thoughtful. Was that postpartum, he made sure I had somebody coming over to help me because he stayed home for like a couple days, but he had to go back to work. He made sure I had someone coming over to help me pretty much every day. And there was one day that I had to say, babe, it's okay if I have a day without somebody here. But I also
tried to get someone there that day. So.
I also had older kids. Like my oldest was 9, and then we had 7 and 6. And so they were a little bit older. They could help out. They could keep themselves entertained. They could make themselves like a simple sandwich or something. But he made sure I had someone here supporting me every day for like the first 3 or 4 weeks, just about.
There was some gaps in there, like a day here, day there, because just other people's lives, they couldn't always get someone. But the effort is to try to have someone here to help her with whatever she might need.
And some days
as often as possible.
Some days that was hold the baby so I could take a shower, or hold the baby so I could take a nap. And other days it was get my kids to clean up. Oh my gosh, I had one doula come over postpartum, and she like power cleaned my house in like 2 hours. She was amazing. I'm just going to say her name. It was Rebecca Papillo. And I don't know if she listens to my podcast anymore, but she was one of my good friends. She doesn't doula anymore, but she power cleaned my whole house, and it was like amazing. It was like the biggest blessing. And then Brittany Sisko is another one in this area, guys. And if you're in the St. Louis, Missouri area, she came over and helped multiple times too. And it's just amazing. And there are postpartum doulas out there too, just a plug for that. But anyway, Scott making sure that I had someone here to help me was huge and incredibly helpful. And he made sure that they knew, you got to be helpful. You can't just like hold the baby.
You can't just hold the baby and talk to mom because mom might not want to talk.
Yeah. Sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, right? Okay, so that's the tip we're going to end on. There was just a handful of really awesome tips. Again, not really prompted by me. These are just the tips that my husband felt were very important and very helpful. And it's not necessarily a comprehensive list, but it is a really good jumping off point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Thank you guys so much for listening. Anything you want to add really quickly, Scott?
Trust mom.
Trust mom. I love it. Oh, Tiffany and I say that all the time. Trust mom's instincts. Thanks, babe. High five. All right. We will talk to you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. And I just pray that you all have a very blessed day.
Thanks, guys.
Hi, Rachel Manns again. If you want to learn more, please subscribe to and rate this podcast and head over to thenaturalbirthsite.com to check out our online natural birth education course, birth story blog, YouTube channel, and more.